Hey, that is right. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, 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 indeed. And not just from me, your host with the most time in his hands, Tom Simple FF. That's also from my mate over here on my right and all the way around the world. That's Tom_Lee92 over there in Australia. And of course, a big hello from our HR executive, Patrick the Alpaca behind me, locked and loaded for another Full Tilt Dynasty podcast presents the Fantasy Walkabout. And today we are taking one hell of a walkabout. We're hopping on the Foot Falcon after a wild day of drinking our dynasty sorrows away with the obvious news of Cam Akers, which guess what we're not going to do? Hit that news over the head with a hammer. We're not. We're going to talk about, it's actually kind of convenient. Not like, I won't say convenient. I'm going to get white knighted. I'm going to say coincidental. Yep. Coincidental that today we are already planning to talk about the value accumulation project, which you can go back and catch up on if you're not already, and how that applies to running back value. We are already planning on doing it, and now we just have that little bit of news to help us along the way. Maybe it'll prove a point or two. We're not going to, just jump on out there and get ourselves ratioed and like I said, white knighted. That's not our style. We're going to keep it positive and keep spinning this thing the right direction. And I just want to come out and first and say, we announced last week that the FullTiltDynasty.com is up and running, and boy, what a week. Just crazy, the responses and how fast people have been to get in touch with us and reach out with us. Jacob just posted today, real quick fire on the devastation that was Cam Akers and what to do with Darrell Henderson and things like, redraft and obviously his best balling and all that other fun stuff. And of course, a little bit about what happens in Dynasty. So you can go and check that article out at FullTiltDynasty.com. You can also get into the forums. We've had discussions about, wide receivers of choice and what do you do with Darrell Henderson, etc. You can hop on in and do that. They're fully functional. They're fully ready for all of your fantasy football queries, if you would. Today, Tom Lee. Jacob over here. Let's get it. Supporter. If you missed, I was just on with Chase and Jacob and the man they call the worst, Shane,
the worst.
At Fantasy Intervention. Very kind of them to have me on, talk about the website, talk about Akers and Henderson and other running backs. And I'm pretty sure someone even found a way to mention Justice Hill as like
he might have popped up
more than a footnote. So very impressed with that and what they're doing over there. So big shout outs. But since we're not here to fuck spiders, Tom Lee, we're going to get cracked down right to it. So sit tight. When we come back, we're going to talk about our first iteration of this value system for running backs via the value accumulation project and how that applies to true value. Sit tight. We're going to be right there. Hang on. Okay, so we know that everyone loves to throw the word value around. Oh, he's a value. He's a great value. What a value. There's so much value. Look at all this value. We get it. And we get that it is startup season. So everyone wants to hear about startup value, draft value, startup value. Not us. That's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about your dynasty leagues that are 2, 3, 4 years and how to take current draft values and get true value out of your dynasty rosters, which is it's a challenging thing in most leagues, especially if you're in leagues with a bunch of sharks or fish or just some real suave owners. It can be or managers. It can be very tricky to do. So, Tom Lee, how are we going to approach this today in terms of running backs?
So we'll have a little look at in draft. I mean, we don't want to stick around and talk about it too much, but we do need to. In startup season, we do need to know where to capitalize on some of this. So we're going to touch on a few different points to keep an eye out for when you are in your startups. But for the rest of us who already have existing rosters and want to know what the hell to do with our running back core and who to look for, where to get the value, we're going to talk through a few different examples down there as well. And not just who's gettable and who are the targets that we should be looking to trade for, but also conversations we should be looking to have, pieces we should be looking to move on, acquire, or, we always talk about acquire true value. And that comes with both buying and acquiring, but also when it comes to selling and shipping off current assets.
And that's the case. I mean, let's say, how many would you say, just top of your heads, how many running backs are true values post startup? Like every running back that's even remotely viable, you're usually paying for. So finding true value in running backs is one of the hardest processes because it's not about who can I get for cheap.
Yeah,
that's going to help you for more than a couple weeks. The answer is nobody.
Yeah,
you can get lucky and you can get a throw in. Right now, the big one is Chuba Hubbard. He's a throw-in in trades right now. Also, what up, Dave? We see you there. Chuba Hubbard is kind of a throw-in in deals right now because, as you said earlier in the offseason, he's the only one that could potentially return first-round value as a backup handcuff late third, fourth-round pick. And that's true. You can get lucky in a trade like that and walk into that kind of value. But for the most part, any running back in a dynasty league that already exists, you're paying for, you're kind of screwed. So this is going to be very interesting because there's so few. How many running backs would you say are actually a true value?
Well, I think that's it. So we always start with, and you started talking about it before, with running back, not with running backs, but just generally everyone wants value. Running backs as a general rule are always overvalued, right? This is the key. It doesn't matter whether you're getting the RB1 or the RB24. They are all immensely overvalued. The real difference is when you have a take that's different to what the rest of the community thinks, and that's really where you're going to capitalize on value. So it's not that we can troll through all these numbers and say, oh, look, this guy's a clear buy, everyone should go get him because you're going to get him at this price. It just doesn't happen because the takes on running backs are too stark for such a limited pool of players. Wide receivers a little bit easier, right? Because wide receivers, we talk about how many wide receiver three. Yeah, but there's like 50 wide receiver threes who, given a different take, could be in the top 36 for people. There's only really 24 to 30 relevant running backs at any one point in time, if we're lucky.
Way less than that. Way less than that.
Yeah, and I say relevant as in like they have a starting job or they have
they'll play 15 snaps. Right? You're looking for a running back that'll play 15 snaps. Like that's relevant.
Yeah, so there's only so many of those guys. So to have variance in rankings is really the only opportunity to have to see what true value is without trading outside the position. And that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later on because it's one of the main pitfalls to trading running backs and talking true value when it comes to running backs is the positional, over-evaluation, but also positional scarcity of running back itself.
Right, and that is something we're going to hit on, but not to death. Okay, It's very important to be mindful of that. We don't want people being like, oh, we get it. Oh, we get it. Oh my God, they're still talking about how many players. We get it. We understand that. But the difference between just overpaying because you need a running back or finding the one that you're willing to pay the appropriate post-draft cost is the difference between getting gouged and getting your running back and having tradable assets later. It's easy to just say, yeah, I'll give you 2 first-round picks in a second and I don't know, insert whatever 572nd wide receiver 3 is out there. It's easy to do that, but you're overpaying. That's not finding the running back the true value. So we're going to get right into it right now. Tier 1, because again, go back and listen to the Value Accumulation Project, right? We talked about how to do your tiers, okay? That's how you should be approaching drafts and trades. Tier-based rankings is not just for drafting. It is key. It is clutch. It is valuable in trades. It's almost it's priceless with the value that it can get back to you. So in tier 1, Tom Lee, are there any true values in that tier 1 for you? There's one for me.
Yeah. So with the current DLF ADP, for me, no. Just because everyone who was going in the first or is in the first tier is being taken where I'd expect them to be or within a range of where I expect them to be taken. So there's no opportunity to create true value there for my tiers. But like you said, there's one for you. So what are you looking at?
It's Ezekiel Elliott for me is the only tier 1. Now, when we say tier 1, like obviously if you're busting out your tiers, tier 1's going to be who? McCaffrey, maybe Taylor, given on where we are in the off season. But in that 1 through 12, the only value right now, if you still have Ezekiel Elliott in your top 12, I know it's a thing that he's not there, but for 2021, right, he kind of is. And if you're not we're not talking about startup, so you should be looking at that kind of thing, what you need for 2021, maybe 2022, and then getting out. Zeke would be the only value to me because you're not paying the 3 first, 2 first, and I don't know, gosh, insert again any wide receiver 3, Curtis Samuel, etc. You're not paying that kind of 2 first in a player. So he's coming around a bit. No, he's not. He's just he's not coming around. He's just understanding that for redraft and best ball, he may not be a terrible option. That's all. He's not actually coming around. Dynasty, he's still outside the top 12, which is fine. I think he's right on the verge for me. So
see, that's the key for me. Right? That's the
he's the best value for me right now because he's the only one in that guy who's got that locked in role. They're going to keep playing him, even though all signs point to decline. He's going to be in a good offense with a bad defense. He's going to score points. He's the only guy I'm willing to pay a little bit for, and you will only pay a little bit to what his cost was a couple of years ago. So
I think that's the key.
He's the best true value in tier 1. Yeah,
the change in his cost. So the reason he wasn't in there for me is he's not, like you said, in my tier 1 running backs. He's just outside. But yeah, because of his age comparative to, and I know we lost one of them this morning, but yeah, comparative to his age, to the age of his peers, he is the standout, accessible one. Yes. And his ADP does stand out in that group.
That's the other thing,
he wasn't a tier 1 asset. Yeah.
Accessible. People are willing to move him. And you're probably your best chance to get him was a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, but you're right. Value should go up a bit when he does.
Oh, well. Absolutely. Week 1, true.
And that's what everyone's going to try to do. Week 4, people are going to be trying to sell him off after he's the top 5 running back, which in all likelihood he will be. Plays in a piss poor division outside of that football team over there in Washington. So tier 2, I want to get a player from you, and it looks like it's Antonio Gibson, who according to DLF as of today, right, ADP 32 is the running back 11. That's going to change. Obviously, news happens. It's going to go down. That's a great value, in that tier 2 spot at the 32nd pick of the draft. Walk us through that a little bit.
So I think the surprising part isn't that the running back 11 was Antonio Gibson. I think that's a fine evaluation. It's pretty much where I have him. But it's the fact that he's in the 3rd round, and you're not going to get young starting quality running backs that often in the 3rd. So, Gibby, that's it, Matt. If you start traditionally running back, then you can also double up and go a 3rd with Gibson in the 3rd. But there's an opportunity now to go out and be a little bit different. We saw I want to take Zeke and Gibson. Yeah, so we saw the different strategies start to come in last year with tight ends being taken early. If you're in Superflex, obviously, which this is, we want to lock up a QB room. So you can't just start as we used to with 2 running backs straight off the board. You need to find that value later on. And to find, if you can, Gibson in the third is outstanding value.
But and what's key in this and what's talking about, not just talking about startup value, is post startup. Someone wanted Zeke in a first for Gibson in a league, and that was a while ago. And that's the kind of stuff you're going to get out of dynasty players. That's probably the more extreme case of that, but that's how hard it is to acquire a running back,
especially a young startup.
Yeah. It's kind of insane, right? To think that Zeke plus a first for Gibson, but that's a viable asking cost from the Gibson owner, given what he could do with a improved offense. I mean, bunch of data that says that he won't catch passes, and McKissick wants an every down role now, apparently. So
the newly heavy McKissick.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thigh season is upon us, obviously, quad and thigh season, but
skies out, thighs out.
Skies out, thighs out. I love that. Coming from a man who has massive quads and thighs, I mean, I'm sure you would definitely be up on your lingo. So look, another guy, we're going to talk a little bit more about Gibson later. Obviously, that trade for Gibson is insane, and I wouldn't do that.
It's a great
Gibson
example,
in the third, and I'm still getting Gibson in the late second to third rounds. But we're not gonna hammer home startup value. We're going to talk about post startup value. So we're going to talk. Gibson actually comes up a little bit later for us. We're not going to sit too long on him. In this particular case, this next player is the guy I want to talk about, because historically, running backs drafted in the 4th round do what? Not a whole lot. But this is a guy who has PPR upside, which is all we care about. In a super flex draft, you can go quarterback, and wide receiver and end up with a running back who I personally have projected to finish as the RB15. Obviously, that's still great value. We're talking about Austin Eckler with an ADP of 42.25. We're going to round it up like we always do. We're going to call it 43. Okay, that's a mid 4th round pick in a draft. So, and look, do you want to talk about post startup, right? And I know we don't care about your leagues, Tom. I get it. This is a little different. This is with my co-host Jacob. I traded Chris Godwin for Eckler straight up. And I'm still happy with that value. That's the kind of value, if you need a running back, that's the kind of value that you're looking to not spend too much. Because is Chris Godwin a good wide receiver? Yes. Was his breakout a little bit overhyped? Probably, given the circumstances. Realistically, he's probably a wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 2 for a running back 2? Hey, I'm taking that. I'm taking that right now, especially at his current cost. Let's talk a little bit about Austin Eckler here, Tom Lee.
Yes, I mean, Gibson startup value. So
exactly,
Eckler for me is one of those polarizing guys. Some have him top 12 and will never move him. Right? They love Austin Eckler.
He had that one season with Rivers, and that's his that ceiling. That's so obviously his ceiling is going to be his fully healthy. It's not going to.
No.
What's up, Husker?
For me, this value sits around about where it should. RB15 in that range, good upsides, especially in PPR. Like it's good value because of the round that he's in. But I don't know. Like, I mean, we're talking about acquisitions post draft, and Eckler for me seems like one of those gettable guys until you go and have that discussion with someone. All of a sudden, you're going, "There's no way I'm going to pay for that." So the reason he's in there for us is that during the draft is probably he's a little bit more value during the draft than he is post draft, depending on who owns him.
Always.
Yeah. Just because he's one of those names, you're like, I don't want that as my RB2. But then as soon as you get outside into your real league, you're going, well, shit, I need an RB2. And
that's exactly exactly the situation. I looked at my roster and I went, ooh, Mike Davis is my RB2. Like, that's not great. But I looked at the worst wide receivers. I go, okay, who's a wide receiver I could move right now to not kill my roster? And guess what? It was Godwin. And it's always going to, you're not trading Stephon Diggs 1-for-1 for Eckler. Right. You're not trading Tyreek Hill for Eckler. So Chris Godwin, a player who is viewed by a lot of people as being that, oh, he's going to get out of Tampa Bay and he's going to go to a situation where he's going to be the one. Well, guess what? Historically, it's not the case. You're getting running back who's locked under contract and an offense that's getting better, right?
Yeah.
That's
And he's still
true
young.
value. That's getting Austin Eckler at a true value price, because you're not paying the top 12 price. Anyone's asking you for top 12 price, I personally think that's crazy. And you're not going to get him lower than a guy in Godwin's tier. So you're moving more than just, side to side on the tiers. You're moving up a tier, given that you're getting a running back, and that's totally fine. That's what you're trying to get at this stage of the season.
Yeah.
When you're 2-3 years deep in a league. I mean, that's just an example. I'm not going to hammer it home.
No,
too much with that personal.
That sort of trade's
stuff,
good, because I mean that sort of trade requires a bit of positional awareness as well, where we know that wide receiver, production is a little bit easier to replace than running back.
Yes.
Even though the longevity of wide receivers is obviously greater, if you need the running back and you can replace the production, then it's an ideal move to be looking at.
Look, it's one of those things where, I mean, are you going to find a running back a little bit later that's going to replace Eckler's healthy production? No. You got to get lucky, like James Robinson lucky. And there's a reason why no one had ever done that before, because it's not a real sustainable thing. Exactly. But guess what? You can hate it or love it, but Robbie Anderson has an equal chance to put up the same stat line as Chris Godwin this year. Right? I mean, maybe the touchdowns won't be there. Maybe they will, but what? 75 catches, 80 catches, 1,100 yards.
We might talk about that next week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're looking at replacing a guy with a name, with a running back, and running backs are the life force of your dynasty rosters right now. Maybe Eckler will get hurt. Maybe Godwin goes off. That's the 50-50 risk in all trades. But right now, Austin Eckler is the best true value, not just a value, but his value is at his true value, which is an immediate go out and try to acquire him. But if you see that that's his RB1, just move on. Just move on. Just don't try. Just move on. Right. That's where we talk about knowing our leagues.
Yeah.
Eckler for Godwin is a smash. Eckler, the dark horse, to finish as the RB1. I don't believe that. Look, he needed what he had, 96 receptions or something insane with Rivers.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Herbert's the check it down guy. He's the huck it and chuck it guy. Lynn isn't there, and we all know Anthony Lynn directly correlates to RB PPR points. I don't think he's a dark horse for the RB1. I think he's a dark horse to finish as a RB1, and I still think that's dark horse. I mean, obviously, with Akers gone, there's another spot. But that's kind of where I'm standing with that. I don't see a path to Godwin as the wide receiver one, so obviously I'm okay with it. Moving on, the next player I want to talk about is, oh boy, I love this one. This is my guy. This is a signed, sealed, certified Tom Tipple pick. Javonte Williams.
This is a double Tom pick.
I can't believe that he is the 59th player at ADP right now, coming off as the RB18. Do people actually think Melvin Gordon is going to be a thing this year? I don't think he makes it out of Denver for week 1.
And I think
you're looking at a player who they traded up to get him. He does everything, and he does everything well. He has contact balance. You can go and watch our pre-draft show and the draft show. It's all over on the Tube of You. Javonte Williams is a absolute crush. It's just a pure snipe. You're selling so hard. You're getting him as the RB18. It's unbelievable. And I get oh my gosh. And it's hard for me to say, like, okay. Breathe for a minute. Look, I wouldn't trade Javonte for Eckler personally. Okay, in my dynasty leagues, I wouldn't do it. So to get him later than what you're getting Eckler for is insane.
Yeah.
There's no way he doesn't get the reins by week, whatever their bye week is, because that's kind of the thing. We saw it with Taylor, we saw it with Akers, we saw it with insert rookie running back. He's going to be a stud in the league. I don't think there's any way that is not. I don't have a crystal ball, can't see into the future, right? We're not reading minds. We're not mind melding. This isn't Star Trek. But look, he has all the skills on a team that's going to use him. I mean, this gets thrown around a lot. Like, it gets thrown around a lot. But Javonte Williams has legitimate league winning upside at the end of the year, period. And you're getting him where you're getting him is insane. Anything to add, Tom Lee? You're shaking your head. It's not sure if you got something to add or if I stole the thunder there.
Javonte Williams is one of the heartbreaks of my offseason because the Falcons didn't take him, and then a pick later,
true, Matty.
The Broncos traded up. Yeah, that's a good point, man. The Broncos traded up a pick later to take him away. And I was very sad because I wanted someone who wasn't Mike Davis to be our running back. And
right here, Dave.
He was also my pre-draft running back one because he was a year younger, or is a year younger, and I loved everything about him. Yeah. So even, and this is the key, and you said before, he has possible league winning upside. What's this? When Gordon... Yeah, so I mean...
And Gordon sucks at football.
So
he's not that good at football. Can we just... He's average at best.
Yeah.
He's a jag.
So
he's a high-priced jag.
The key for me with Javonte was, even if he doesn't do anything this year, he's still worth more than the RB18, and he's still value at this round. Like, he's only got ceiling to go to. He's only got upside. He's going to run heavy offense anyway. Quarterback, whoever it is, still can't throw the ball. Yeah, he's just one of those guys for me that if you can get him in the draft, that's probably where he's the most value, because trying to get him off a Tom Tipple after the draft is a nightmare.
Never going to happen.
Yeah, and he's never leaving my team once he's in it.
Yeah. He's an untouchable asset outside of drafts unless you believe stronger than I do. You're not getting him in a throw-in unless the guy that drafted him is just like, whatever, rookies. I hate rookies. And those people exist.
They exist.
I used to be one.
Yeah.
Right.
Or even trading future first, and we always talk about value. Trading future first from next year, where some people don't think the running back class is going to be as good. That's fine. If you can get Vontae for that, that's fine. But yeah, it's pretty hard to extrapolate and hope for those sort of opportunities to pop up.
Javonte Williams is a player who, look, his true value in a draft is fine, but post draft, he's not a true value. This is why we talk about what true value is. He might look like a value right now in your leagues because you're doing a draft, but go to the player, the owner, the manager of Javonte Williams in your leagues that's not in its first year, and go try to get him for that value. That is not going to happen. So that's why he's not a true value, right? That is Javonte Williams is a shining example of what we're talking about. What really is true value in your leagues, because all this startup talk can be very deceiving. And it's important to remember that you're not always in a startup. Look, the next player we're going to talk about is getting picked one more. More of the minutes on a live show. I'm usually more in and out. Hey, we're happy you're here there, Matty. We're happy you're here there, buddy. We're out, hanging out, chilling, kicking it. We're a little later tonight, but it's working out. Look, the next player we're going to talk about, we only got 3 left before we get out of here. 3 left in this before we move on, I should say. We got a whole nother section to go, but we're going to rip through these really quickly.
Yep.
The RB19 right now, ADP 59.25. So Williams is ADP 59. So they're like right next to each other. We're going to call it again. ADP 60. Yeesh, Tom. RB19 is Slime Sanders, who I'm not a fan of.
This is where we might lose Matt.
We're sorry, Matt. But look, he is sliding like crazy. There's so many question marks about what's going to happen with him. Why do you feel that he's a true value in that tier 4 and 5?
I think that's the key, like you just said. He's one of the biggest sliders from this offseason. compared to last year, where I know everyone got burnt, you've got a heap of changes. Yes, there's a different quarterback that could be seen as a good or a bad thing. But the O-line's healthy. It's coming back.
I know, Dave.
Yes, I mean, like realistically, the key is at this ADP, he's good value, but I've seen him slide later, and that's the key. That's what you want to look out for if you're in startups. The rest of him,
he's easy to trade for right now.
This is what we're going to get to
trade
for.
Like I said, we're going to talk about him a little bit more. Finish up there.
That's right. Yes, I mean, like O-line's getting healthy, new offense, all that sort of stuff. He's still the number one starting running back for them. Still has a heap of talent, still young. At this price, you're not really going to get a better option, if that makes sense. Like once Vontae's off the board and once the next guy we're talking about comes off the board, there's really nothing much left. So you may as well lock up that RB position if that's what you need in that round.
Look, if you're getting starting potential production in the fourth and fifth round, it's, I mean, fifth and sixth, like you said, absolutely right. And the next,
because pick 60 is end of the fifth round, right? So that's like
exactly.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the next guy who I think it's absolutely insane that the next player is being taken after.
And I think we'll see this change as we go along. But
we will.
Yeah.
I think everyone's riding that Jalen Hurts is going to carry a rushing offense mentality and a new coaching staff for Sanders, et cetera, et cetera. I don't buy it. Travis Etienne, ADP 60.75. We're going to call that 61 on the roundup. The RB 21. I mean, oh my Lord. The RB 21 who's being drafted at 105 in rookie drafts this season is insane. And this is another warning about true value because you're not getting Etienne as the RB 21. Think of who you might have as your RB 20 or 22 or 23. Now imagine trying to trade that RB 23 and a second round pick to go and get Travis Etienne. It's never going to happen. No. So that makes him not a true value. He might be a value in drafts, but since we're not talking about drafts, he's not a true value post draft. And that's what's important. You're not going to trade the RB 23 or 24. I don't know who that is off the top of my head, but you're not going to trade that super low. Yeah, you're not trading Chris Carson in a second for Etienne. That's never going to happen. If you get that, you're laughing, hilarious, like just to the bank, cash that check, deposit it, money, and you're the monopoly guy. All right, you're just happy as can be. It's never going to happen. He's not a true. You're not actually going to get him at this. He's not a true value. This is just a crazy oversight, probably with quarterbacks moving up, tight ends moving up the board, pushing him down.
I think the only narrative that. Yeah, I think Etienne, right? And like you said, Matt, this will change, and you won't have seen this in a lot of drafts recently as the ADP starts to update. I think you'll find that Etienne will not be anywhere near those rounds.
No, God, no.
The one narrative keeping me interested in Etienne was a lot of people had him as their RB1 while scouted because he had the most potential, fastest, all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But his coach keeps saying stupid shit. Yes. And this is crucial because a lot of people buy coach talk. We really don't give a shit about it, but some people do.
The only time we care about coach speak and reported narratives is when it fits our own personal narratives. And that's how it should be. Like we always say, lie to your league mates. Lie. All the time.
Yeah, man. So that's it. So, I mean, when Urban Meyer learns to stop talking in the off season, you're not going to get Etienne as value anywhere. But right now, if you can get him in the draft, go out and get him because you'll be laughing for the next 3 to 4 years.
But Tom Lee, didn't you hear James Robinson's going to be the hammer in that offense?
That's it. Trevor Lawrence maybe not ready to start.
Oh, my God. Okay, we're moving on. The next player right now has slid so far in drafts that I think that he's a value.
Yes.
Look, I've gone on record in numerous places to state that the Josh Jacobs RB1 Dynasty RB1, the RB1 is hilarious. I don't think he is, but at this value, RB20 right now, you're not going to get him for that off somebody. I mean, maybe you will, but he's definitely a value. Now, if you want a running back that's going to play that's, in an offense where he's going to be the only option to score touchdowns, because I'm not that worried about Kenyon Drake on the friggin' goal line. No, thank you. They're going to use Jacobs for that. unless Gruden is like fooling all of us, which
Who knows?
maybe.
Yeah.
We're gonna see some Hunter Renfro go red zone
Put
targets
Hunter
for some
Renfro in the
reason.
backfield.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen in
Waller up the middle.
with the Raiders. But what I do know is that getting Josh Jacobs as the RB20 with RB1 pedigree is wild to me.
Yeah.
So
Especially
why
at his
is he a
age.
value? Now I'm gonna ask you: is he a true value outside of a draft?
We always say this, like it's really what you can get him for. But I mean, I've traded late first from this year straight up for him.
Yes.
And for me, that is a true value. You know,
Because
Waddle,
who's your late first? Who's your late first this year? It's Waddle. It's
Bateman,
Mac
Waddle,
Jones.
Mac Jones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And you're gonna go and get a starting running back for that pick. Yeah, I'm taking that for sure. Because I mean, in all likelihood, there's no way he did. So you look at it this way. So if you're ever wondering, like, how to identify what a true value is, if you're trading something like that, we'll use the same example. Let's say Chris Carson in a second to get Josh Jacobs. Okay, that one's actually got legs. Like that one actually has a chance. Right. Do you think he's going to finish as the RB20? I don't personally. I don't think there's any way he finishes the RB20 outside of injuries, which we don't project for because we're not sociopaths. And it's important to not do that. So to me, he's a true value in every format. Format.
Yeah.
In current startups, in redraft, in best ball, in DFS, in superflex, post drafts, like
post draft. Yep.
You know, with history,
especially if the owner was burnt by him last year, like so many are out. Yeah,
not just best ball, Matty.
Same in Dynasty. Yeah,
I mean, I got him at the 5-6 turn. I was really, I didn't even want to take him, but it was one of those situations where what do we always say? Don't draft to fill your lineup. Your starting lineup does not matter in a fucking startup. So remember that. Look, he's a true value in every format. I mean, Josh Jacobs is a clear target, and he is an easy way to learn how to define what true value is, and how to apply it. Because you're, again, tier basing and all that other stuff. If I traded Chris Godwin straight up for Eckler, imagine the value you're going to get for a guy like Josh Jacobs, who, he's going to catch 20 some passes. Probably. He's probably, again, I'm going to keep saying if healthy, but we never project for injuries because we're not sociopaths. But 1,050 yards, 8 touchdowns, 20 receptions. That's a mid to low RB2 in a healthy season.
What do you reckon a comparable trade would be? So if you had
for Jacobs,
so if you had Eckler for who was it before? Godwin.
Yep.
Like, what's a wide receiver straight up for Jacobs that you'd look at, like a Sutton Judy range, or even earlier than that?
I mean, if somebody wanted to trade me Josh Jacobs for Cortland Sutton straight up, I'm running. Again, it's probably someone like Godwin, honestly. Like, because they're right around those same tiers. Like, Eckler and Jacobs are kind of in that same tier for me. That RB 14, 15, 16. I'm probably looking at a guy like Godwin. You're obviously like Sutton in a second for Jacobs. I'm in. Like, that's totally reasonable for me, but I'm high on Sutton.
What about like a Keenan Allen, A-Rob sort of range?
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't trade A-Rob and Keenan Allen for me because that's the cutoff.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I have Godwin right next to those guys, but I'm probably not
perceived. He's perceived differently. Godwin, the too many mouths to feed arguments. Their defense is actually good. Yeah. Brady, like, there's a lot of questions. His contract, health issues, etc. Great player. You're right. It is a little weird that I wouldn't be willing to pull the trigger on a guy like Keenan Allen, but.
No, because when you mention it, I'm thinking more and more going, like I wouldn't give Godwin for Jacobs right now, but that's just my ranks.
See, I would again. So
but it's getting close. I think it's the point. Yeah.
If we're not talking about a startup, I don't see any reason why, if you're an RB needy team and have the wide receiver depth,
that's fair.
Like, you're not trading Godwin because you have Julio. Right? That's not the type of thing you're doing. You're trading Godwin because you already have Hill and Diggs or Keenan Allen or someone else.
He's your wide receiver 3.
Exactly. So that's the type of situation where he becomes a true value. If you're trading Godwin plus something or a player up a tier for someone like Jacobs, now you've lost your true value, and you might as well just get yeeted.
I reckon we might throw a couple of polls up after this as well, just to see what's out there. I think it's a really interesting one. Yeah.
Also, and if you haven't voted already, please go for your favorite Aussieism so far.
We got another one today.
There's going to be another one. We're starting to do them at the end, so I don't just die in this chair for 10 minutes.
We actually get some content in.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're just sending me to another planet with these, mate. And I'm using them in my everyday life now, and
it's so good. And everyone out there should be as well.
I no joke. I was at Home Depot because I'm building a patio, and I literally said that these prices shits me to tears, and the poor employee just had no idea what to say, and it just came out so fluently in my everyday speak. And I was like, oh no.
What have I done?
It's actually, and so I'm building the patio, and I got my mate. And what, of course, look, boys, we're not here to fuck spiders. Okay, let's get to work here. Like, what are we doing? This isn't beer time. And I was just like, oh my god, I need to stop. I need to stop. Seems like most teams are RB needy, and Jacobs is a steady option. Look, because running backs win championships in dynasties in fantasy football, right? So everyone is RB needy, even if you don't think you are, unless you're one of those 0 RB types, which they're sociopaths. So they're not for me, the 0 RB crowd. But I mean, they're great people, just not their strategy. So like everyone is RB needy, and Jacobs is the best option right now. See, Manny, see, shits me to tears. That's right. Look, we talked about players we felt our values in their tiers, but we're going to talk about post-draft and existing rosters, important for RB as they are often a nightmare to acquire. So Tom didn't fully read this show sheet, so I kind of blended these two together a little bit by accident. Because that's what happens when you're a host with not the most time on his hands right now. But what we are going to do is we're going to talk about acquiring players like Gibson, Mixon, Clyde, and Sanders.
And Jacobs. We can throw Jacobs in there. That was a good point.
Okay. We'll talk.
I like that.
We'll add that a little bit at the end if we need to. Look, true value is players, and look, everyone has their own sites. Yours should be fulltiltdynasty.com. That where you get all your information and your go-to when news drops. Where are you going for your rankings? If you don't just use Jacobs like I do. Look, Dynasty Nerds have Antonio Gibson as the RB 19.
That's right. That's not a typo.
19. And look, I respect everyone at the Dynasty Nerds for the work that they do, but having Antonio Gibson as the RB 19 is kind of insane to me.
Yeah.
Just given what his upside clearly is, physical freak, just athletic. It just he wasn't RB 19 last year before he played a snap to me. Well, sorry, that's a lie. Transparency. I didn't believe, but let me tell you, the minute he stepped on the field, I believed real quick.
Yeah.
So there was a time where he was an RB19, Tom. You're lying. You're placating. I get it. I corrected myself. Don't at me. And if you do, I'm just going to reply with a Goodfellas gif. So just yeet that. Look, at RB19, that is not to me a true value because nobody that has him thinks he's the RB19.
No, this should have already been snaffled up by now, right?
But exactly. So explain this one a little bit.
So the key of how he ended up here is because we know Dynasty Nerds are purely film-based analysis. And when Antonio Gibson came out, he didn't have any film because he took 40 snaps for his entire career from running back. And everyone's like, oh, he's very impressive. He tests really well, but we have no idea what's going to happen, right? And then, like you said, he steps on the field, and we go, oh, never mind, he's amazing. Because
he's actually really good.
Right? So how it's not changed, I don't know.
Peyton
so
Barber?
If you have someone,
Peyton Barber? Antonio Gibson. Peyton Barber. Antonio Gibson. It's not even close.
Yeah.
I was so stupid back then.
But this is the key, right? We all look to going, what matters, what do we like? And it's so hard because we didn't get to see preseason games and see him actually do anything.
Yep.
I think if we had that would have changed a lot. But for this not to have changed on Dynasty Notes is kind of I don't. There's no narrative to suggest that he can't be any higher. Yeah, so it doesn't make sense. So if you find someone out there who, like you said, depending on where they get their information from, and just copy and paste, if it's not anyone else's, you might find someone out there who just wasn't sure.
Look, if you're paying Carson and a first for Gibson, I think that's a steal of a trade. Like, that's the type of value he's at. And an RB19, that's kind of the deal that you're looking to make. That's a true value to me. So
what would be the back end? So for me, I'd have him tier 3. So he'd be the end of the running back ones for me. So somewhere in that 10 to 12 range. What is the lowest value you'd think he's still a true value at? Like if you ask someone, where do you have him?
If they say anything 10 and lower, that's true value. Anything higher, I'd be hard pressed. Obviously, with the Akers injury, I'm going to move him up a spot. He was my 11. I'm going to move him to 10.
Correct.
That young gun Hutchinson traded 3 firsts for Givey. Exactly. And you know what? Okay. Right?
Yeah.
Like, okay. That's
right.
To me, it's fine. It's fine. If that's the guy.
It's not true value, but it's not.
It's not true value, but if your process dictates this is the guy that's going to take me to the promised land and you're trusting your process.
Is what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Look, I think to answer your question, I think anyone that if you go, like we talked about in the value accumulation project, if you go, where do you have this guy? And they reply with, he's kind of like my RB 10, 11.
Yeah.
That's where I'm sending that first. Plus Carson and like a third or one of the 772,000 wide receiver threes that don't matter.
Yeah.
Like Gallup, Carson, and a first for Gibson. You're sending that out if that guy says he's the RB, 10 or 11.
I think the key for me is if anyone says
fine.
he's an RB2, then you start talking and start looking to
immediately. Don't let that breathe for a second.
Yeah. If it says if you say high end running back 2,
with what? Upside. Yeah. God, I hate that so much. Everyone has upside. We get it. Yeah. Hey, if Todd Gurley signs with Baltimore this week, you could have some RB2 upside. Oh my God. Can we stop? Can we just, I just want to take a minute. Can we stop saying that? Like, we all understand that there's upside to guys. Like, we understand that there's realms of possibilities where it's understood. Yeah. So if we're talking trades and you go like, well, you can have Gallup in here. And I go, I don't really care about Gallup because he is going to be a wide receiver 3 in all likelihood. And you go, but he's a wide receiver 3, but he could be a wide receiver 2. So could the other 742,361 wide receiver 3s. Stop it. We get it. The next player I want to talk about is Joe Mixon.
Yep.
Look, this is a classic case of injury discount management. Right?
Used to be.
So DLF had him ranked as the RB19. Different than the Dynasty Nerds RB19. I still can't believe that. Look, obviously at this case, I don't want Mixon at like if I can help it. But if you're doing that same thing, talk about this one.
So, I mean, I got burnt by my Mixon shares last year, and I'm doubling down this year because fucking let's go. But not at, like, I mean, you looked at DLF's ADP for him. He was in the top 12 RBs in startup ADP, which is insane because the narrative for me can't have swung that far around just because he's healthy again. Having said that, I still like him. We talked about not saying the word upside. I think RB19 is his floor. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't see him finishing any worse than RB18.
Well, it's the same thing. He's a talented player on an offense that's going to, need to be out there.
If you can find the owner where he is accessible and not crazily priced, I'm doing it. I'm in. I think the narrative's changed on him a bit. I think he's becoming less and less accessible. Just because everyone's gone and got him, and now he's sitting in their team, they don't want to move him. But
you missed the true value chance at him already.
Yeah, I mean, you might still find a few because a lot of, and we talk about this as the dead period, so a lot of teams and a lot of leagues aren't that active and haven't moved many players around. So still check and go across all your leagues and see when the last time he was moved around was.
Is he? So let's talk about Mixon for a second. Is he a 2 first guy for you?
He's
trading
the end, he's the end of that.
22, 23 first for sending that, or 2 22s?
If I need to win now, yes, I'm sending that. Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't send that out for Mixon personally.
Yeah. I think it's
that's
a fine
cutoff
line
for me.
But I think it's also because I'm doubling down that I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, of course.
And also,
it's in your process. It's in your heart, right?
Yes.
Like it's in your soul. You're determined to come out like Rocky.
Yeah.
Right?
This is a man who I had as the RB8 last year, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the issue, is the drop off. Like, his
it is hard to
performance
separate that. It is hard to separate that and be completely objective, right?
Yeah.
So on the Friday show, we always talk about being the paragon of objectivity, right? So long as the narrative fits your methodology.
Yeah.
Very important to remember that. But look, Mixon is a guy that you are probably, chances are people that have Mixon are holding on to him, but maybe they're just 1 foot in, 1 foot out, not quite sure. Yeah. Maybe they think they're a cop, right? Yeah. They're going to turn on you. Yeah, exactly. You can check that show out on the Tuba U right now.
I think it's like a tier 2 Ezekiel Elliott sort of deal, right? So people that burn, they hate it. Tier 1, Zeke's the tier 1 example. Mixon's the tier 2 example. Burn, but he has
so you're sending
all the volume you need to be.
So if you're sending 2, if you're sending 2 first for Mixon because he's the tier 2 version of that, what's Ezekiel Elliott worth to you still then? Because that's key, interesting to me.
Yeah,
I'd be more willing. It's weird because I'd be more willing to spend 2 firsts on Zeke than Mixon.
Yep. Yeah, right? I'd agree with that. Yep.
But I'm hard not giving those 2 picks for Mixon.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, 2 firsts for Zeke is a steal. Like, I'm happy to do that in any league. If you have Zeke and I have firsts and it's not the Aussie one where I'm hoarding everything, come and hit me up because that's great. Yeah, right. But no, like I think, do you add much more to that? Possibly. If you can throw one of the 7,000 wide receiver 3s in there to get it done for Zeke, I'm happy with that still. But that's probably the end of that value. Yeah. And like I said, Mixon, I'm only doing it if I'm win now and I know those picks are not going to be early. Like if I'm expecting to finish top 3 in that league, I'm happy to do the 2 future firsts, but it's really close.
I remember getting Elliott at the 402 earlier this offseason in startups and being like ecstatic, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. I think it's very interesting to note the differences between players that are right beside each other, right? Kind of perceived the same way, like Mixon and Zeke. And I get it. No one thinks Mixon, well, not no one. There are people that think Mixon's that elite player. Yeah, is Zeke an elite player? He's just attached to a good offense at this stage of his career. And that's one hell of an argument that, look, if you want to talk about Zeke, just at FF_RTDB and just put Pollard sucks. And you'll have yourself a great time. It'll be a fantastic time for you.
All we're saying is look out for a blog post on fulltiltdynasty.com, possibly tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
With my name at the bottom of it about these 2 guys, because it's a great talking point, a great discussion that I think, we can have. Yeah.
I want to talk about the next 2 really quick before we get on out of here. The next player to me is the ultimate value. This is a player that I'm willing to spend 2 first plus to go and get right now, and it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Obviously, he's not. He was kind of the last tipping point of landing spots don't matter, talent does, right, in this class. But people were drafting him at the 101 because he went to the Chiefs. Well, guess what? A couple of touchdowns, and I don't mean just a couple. More than a few, right? Touchdowns called back due to holding. If he gets 4 or 5 of those, punches them in, we're not having a conversation about a value. Touchdowns are not a predictive stat. His total yardage was totally fine for a rookie season, especially with injuries.
A couple games,
Exactly. It's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's disappointing owner, or he had disappointed owners. Chances are, this is why it's important not to talk about startups, right? It's important to talk about what's happened a year or 2 afterwards. Going and getting Clyde right now is probably one of the best decisions that you can make in your dynasty. And I know Dave Kluge put out an article about Clyde that you definitely should be going and check out. So shout out to Dave. putting in his work on Clyde. 2 first plus for Clyde is something I'm totally willing to do. For upside and whatever you want to call it, he's just a lock to do well this year. I don't think there's any way. Second year running back. It's not like he went out there and had 300 yards rushing, 100 yards receiving in 16 games.
Yeah.
He's not a bust. Clyde wasn't a bust. He was just a bust to the people who drafted him at 101. Exactly. Full disclosure, we did it, right?
We were done. Yeah.
I wouldn't even say that because right now he's a value, right? Well, I mean, missing out on Taylor is, he's a.
That was the key.
He fumbles a lot and he had too many carries and whatever. Narratives. We let narratives get into our brain. But I think that he's an absolute dynamite steal right now, post drafts. Because, I mean, in startups, everyone's always going to take the young running back. He's not really going to be a value. He's not a true value in startups, but outside of that, you can easily pry away Clyde Edwards-Helaire for, I know I keep using him as like an example, but he's kind of like everyone's favorite tradable running back. It's Chris Carson.
Oh, yeah.
So you can move Chris Carson and 2 firsts and get Clyde and a receiver, right? You can move 2 firsts and Gallup and probably go and get Clyde. Or 2 firsts and Zach Moss and go and grab yourself Clyde. And I'm doing every one of those quickly. Clyde is the guy that's going to take a Keenan in a second.
Yeah.
Right? To go and get. When we were talking about the difference between trading away a Godwin or a Keenan Allen, and I can't remember the other guy that you mentioned that same breath,
A-Rob.
but like A-Rob. It's probably taking an Amari Cooper and a pick. Or Amari Cooper, right now, Zach Moss, and a pick to pry away Clyde. And that is not – look, I'm higher on Amari Cooper maybe than some. I don't think Lamb's the one there. I think it's Cooper. So when I say that, take that into mind. But that's probably what it's going to cost for me. And I'm okay with that, which to me makes him a true value. If you're willing to pay that price for Clyde, which most of the time you don't have to me, that makes him a true value.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me with any of these guys, and this is where I want to touch on it, is we mentioned at the start that people always want, and we mentioned the value accumulation project too. When you're trying to acquire a running back, people are really, really wanting a running back in return, right?
That's where having a guy like Zach Moss comes in clutch.
So this is the issue, is at this point where you're trying to acquire for people RB 13 through 18, which is where most of the value lies, what running back are you giving up? Because there's not many from 19 to 24 that really carry a lot of weight. And it's like you said before, Chris Carson, we accept, is probably an older guy who still has some relevance. So he's a good one to throw in there. Would you throw, Josh Jacobs in a first for Clyde?
Yeah.
Yep.
I would.
Cool. What about,
even though I think Clyde and Jacobs are very similar as a player, I think they're more similar than not. Just Clyde has better hands. He's attached to a good offense. I'm taking that for sure, because I don't think there's any way that Jacobs finishes above Clyde this season. I'm very bullish on that, and it's documented now, so I'll be here to tell you why it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm fine with that trade, except I think you can do more with that first. That'll be the only hesitation I have with it, because you already have a running back. So
you could probably get something else back on the Clyde side, but
possibly, yeah.
For the most part, you're looking at a guy who's
right?
RB 21.
Well, especially now that Akers is out. Because Akers is out for the year, a lot of those sophomore guys are still big targets. Now there's only really 4 or 5, including Gibson, left. It's a really interesting discussion around CEH and what running back you can give up. Gaskin, yes, if someone likes
Gaskin's
him.
another one for sure.
Yep.
Gaskin in a first.
Yep.
Gaskin a first and Gallup for Clyde. I'm running.
What about Gaskin and...
I don't care about Myles Gaskin, so no matter what you pair with him, I'm probably sending him.
Fair. I think that's where it gets tougher, right? So, like, if you can flip one of those guys back, if you can flip Melvin Gordon back as a running back and send 2 firsts, cool.
Easy.
Send it.
And there's no harm in sending that trade. The worst that's going to happen to you is the guy's like, no, you're way off. Most people, when they see 2 first-round picks pop up, it's at least a starting point. And like we said, his true value is from a disappointed owner, probably not anywhere else. But considering he's a player that I'm willing to spend that on, to me, it makes him a true value.
Yep.
Willie
agree.
or
Yep.
Willie won't he? We don't know. No idea. But process tells me that he's going to do just fine this season because some of those touchdowns, Eric Fisher can't sit there and hold all day. All right. Their offensive line was atrocious last year, period. And they beefed it up. All signs pointing up for Clyde. We did have written down here Miles Sanders. I'm just going to quickly run through this, obviously, with narrative discussions. We talked about that earlier. With the narrative of him sliding, he's definitely a startable player. To me, he's a full-on avoid. You said it was acceptable.
He for me is with Jacobs in those acquirable guys. He is, like
he's
you
just
said
not
before,
the one I want to. I think I'd rather have Josh Jacobs right now than I would Miles Sanders.
Yep.
Personally,
again, if you can get him for a first anywhere from the 110 onwards, straight up, you do it.
Yeah. It's like a Javonte, Etienne.
Right? Yeah. As soon as those guys are off the board, you can pretty much flip your first for it, or a first and a second, whatever. Just because you're not going to get the position, a top 19, top 18 running back anywhere else. You may as well see if he's got anything this year. If he has a good week and you really don't like him, flip him again. But yeah, it's just take the shot, pick up those guys when you can if they are available, and make sure you do due diligence by asking the people in the league how bad they got burnt and what they want for them.
Know your league, lie constantly. These are things that we preach all the time here on the Fantasy Walkabout. Tom Lee, I just want to grab a couple final thoughts before I send the people home happy.
Yep. Well, we got to get the Aussie slang in here.
Right. Okay.
Some of you may know this, but it's budgie smugglers. So, Tom, if I said to you, mate, nice pair of budgie smugglers, what do you think I'm talking about?
Oh my God, budgie smugglers! I gotta go with. You said pair, so there's two. Shoes.
I'm talking Speedos. I'm talking Dick Togs. So it's summer over there for you boys right now, boys and girls out there. Get your pair of budgie smugglers on, head down the beach, and have yourself a good time, because it has to be one of the most delightful ways to talk about. What? And there's actually a company. There's a company over here in Australia called Budgie Smuggler, and they sell some fantastic designs. Yep.
They're the Beyondies of Aussie.
Yeah. Why do you think it's called Budgie Smugglers? We don't have to go into it. We're not crass. Smugglers. It's pretty obvious why they're called Budgie Smugglers. But yeah.
Damn it.
Banana hammocks, Dick Togs, Budgie Smugglers.
Dick Togs?
Yep, Dick Togs. Go for it. DTs. We'll call them DTs. So that's a fun one for you all out there, especially during summer. That's one to confuse your family and friends. Maybe not family. Maybe save it for friends. And I'm not sure how you're going to work this one into working on the patio, Tom, because I don't want to see a picture of you in your budgies on the deck.
Budgie smugglers and Dick Togs.
And this is why we do it. Oh my God,
you're the toughest people on planet Earth. You live on an island actively trying to kill you every day.
Every day, yep. Read today that sharks are getting closer to the beaches, so that's good.
Well, I mean, hey, you'll scare them off with your budgie smugglers and your Dick Togs. Oh my God. Oh, we got two here today because Dick Togs is a totally new one to me.
I didn't know. I guess you guys don't call them Togs, but we call them Togs.
We don't wear Speedos, bro. Yeah, unless you're like a Fortune 500 80-year-old white dude, or a bodybuilder. They're not a thing. Thank God. Oh my Lord.
Well, they are now, Tom.
Budgie smugglers. I'm gonna have to buy one now. I think that's. I'm gonna have to go. Yep. I'm gonna have to go and buy one from Budgie Smugglers.
And it's Australian, so it's shortened to Budgies.
Holy fuck!
But that's all my final word. Apart from that, stay vigilant. Keep asking your leagues. Keep talking to your leagues, and try to get the trade season started earlier. I think we're coming out.
Dick Dogs.
You're an idiot. We're coming out of this dead period of Dynasty. We want to get back into it. It's not just all about startups and drafts. Oh, sorry, Dave. Yeah, not all about startups and drafts. So make sure that you are doing your due diligence out there and asking and getting to know what your league mates are doing with their teams as soon as possible, and capitalize on this value while it's still there.
I swear to God, you all sit around after like fending for your lives against ruse, poisonous snakes and spiders.
Rue's
and we're
not
like,
even dangerous.
I've seen those fuckers
Yeah.
kick. One kick and you're
avoid 'em.
left. You're left eating soup for a very long time if you fuck with them. Okay,
Not if you're wearing
that's a
budgies.
no
You know.
bueno. Yeah, not if because they're running the fuck away. Look, I love this show so much. We're learning new stuff here all the time. I don't know how I'm going to work that into a sentence this week, but it's now my mission, and I'll get back to you on
Next
the
week
next
you can wear your
edition.
budgies. Yeah.
Look, if you want to talk about final thoughts, it's always going to be the same thing for me. Let's be kind to each other. Let's, first off, don't be a dick. Okay.
It's rule number one.
There was the whole, not going to say the name, but there was the whole victory lapping injuries, perceived it to be that or not, the white knighting and all that other fine thing. If that's what you want to do with your day, please, by all means, do so. But be kind to each other, because being a dick to someone that was a dick doesn't make it okay. And that's something to remember. Be true and be you, as my main man would say. Over there on Laid Back's channel, which you can catch on the YouTube, free plug there for a guy who I appreciate a lot. Be true to yourself. That's always really important. Be a good person. Work really hard. Keep moving forward. And good things are going to happen. Also, please go and get those RB values. Go back and check the Value Accumulation Project. Go and subscribe. But as I always like to do at the end of these things, I just want to tell you that if you agree with everything you said, but you got to let us know. If you disagree with anything you said, well, you definitely got us know. You can head over there at thefulltiltdynasty.com. Go subscribe, hop in the forums, check in the blog, leave a comment. Anything you want, you can contact us. Whatever you want on that site is fully functional, fully active. We appreciate you for going and stopping in. Let us know that you were there and get your shout out next week. If you have a question for myself, Tom Lee, Big Billy, Jacob, guess what? You can leave it there. You can submit it to us. You can leave it in the forum, and we're going to talk about it on the next show with the shout out. Very, very cool stuff coming from us. Hey, and if you didn't know, August 7th, the man himself, Captain Controversy, the Podfather, is joining myself, FF_RTDB, that's Jacob, and Big Billy FF, the Billy Milestone, on the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast special Saturday edition, so we could get it in with the Podfather himself. Look, big love and appreciation to everyone there. Obviously, please go subscribe to the Dynasty Vipers Network, where you can catch this show right here. You can catch the Friday show. Let us know that you stopped in, and let them know that Tom sent you. Get your shout out. Guys, we couldn't do the show without you guys listening. We love that we're able to do it. So as I always like to remind everyone, again, I feel like this is important. Okay? Be kind. Don't be a dick. And remember that clear eyes, full hearts can never lose. Good night, everybody. Ciao for now. Budgie Smugglers!